Ready to hear ourselves.
Okay, it is 4 o'clock. Good afternoon. I will call this meeting of the Reconfiguration Committee to order and ask the clerk to take our roll, please.
Carol.
Here.
Schoonover. Here. Manning. Harry. Here. Dirk.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Sorry, Bob. Is that Bob that was on? Williamson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Good. And are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, Mr. Chair. the committee is properly known.
Before us, we have a 13-point agenda. I have a motion to approve that agenda. Motion by Schoonover, second by Perry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item 5, approval of minutes from the February 4th meeting. Those minutes should be in your packet. Anybody have questions, corrections, clarifications needed on those minutes?
I thought I saw something here. In, reports, section A, SEH market analysis update, the last line.
Okay.
Supervisor Schoonover inquired about page 17 regarding the Wallace Student Center. And Administrator Clements noted that the county would not be keeping that building. I didn't.
I think that was in regards to, we were talking about the tile, what's the video?
Was that about in light of the damage? Because that's when we found out about the damage and stuff. And
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
I don't know if the statement that we will not be keeping the building was accurate. We may not.
And I think one of the things I think we were talking about is that the county will not.
Yes. That would
Yeah.
be true.
Correct.
We would not keep it in operation.
Oh, okay.
So somebody else might buy it, but we're.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
intent, wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah,
Now it makes sense.
Okay.
that wasn't gonna be county property
Right.
at all.
Correct.
All right, anything else on the minutes? All right, if there's nothing else, then the chair declares those minutes to be approved as presented. Item 6 is public comment. Anybody from the public that's invisible in the room that I can't see? Anybody online with public comment for this committee? Hearing none, we will move on to reports. Item 7A, administrators report.
All right, have a few things to go over. Number 1, we have the open house on March 12th from 4:30 to 6:30. That will be at Melville Hall. So I hope everybody, if you're able to, if you can make it, I know Dave says he's out of town, so he won't be able to. It is going to be a open house format. There won't be any presentation, but it really will be an opportunity for the community to give their input. One of the things that was asked at the last meeting was, we disconnected the electric, or, we're planning to disconnect the electric from the Wallace Student Center. And the question was asked, how much would it cost if we set up electric on their own? It would be over $11,000 to do that. So if that was something the county would do, that is what the cost would be. The next report,
They set it up on their own, means separated from
everything
Melville,
else,
but
yes,
the other
and the
one.
science
Okay.
building, yes.
If we want to keep it in.
Right.
Yes. The next thing that I have under the administrator's report is the survey results, and we have SEH online if they want to give us an overview of those.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I just had to pull it up and then unmute myself at the same time. But I thought, great response to the survey. We had 328 responses. And so we then generated a survey results document that I'm not, Tricia, have you shared that with the committee at all, or?
Yes, I did, and it is in the packet for them to see.
Okay, awesome, great. So again, I think great response. I don't know that there were any huge revelations that came out of it, but I think some good. I think just kind of justification that I think we're on the right path with the direction that the committee is headed, and seems like there's great interest in the community and great engagement in the community with this project. So as was mentioned, we'll follow up on this with the open house next week and hope that we'll get a good amount of people that will show up to that meeting as well. We also collected through the survey, I think it was about 90 email addresses of folks that were interested in just staying up to date on the project. And so we did send that, the invitation for the open house or the posting for the open house out to those email addresses. And so we'll continue public input through that method next week. But I'm happy to field any questions regarding the survey results. I didn't prepare to just like pull out highlights, but if there's anything that anybody has questions on, I'm happy to answer those, and we can kind of talk through any of the results that were particularly interesting to the committee.
Questions or comments from the committee?
I have one. Is there anywhere in the survey that asked their age group that they fall within? The survey respondents.
We didn't. We did not have a section of the survey that collected any sort of demographic information on the respondents. Those are kind of hit or miss. A lot of times you don't like to make those questions mandatory, and then a lot of times then not everybody fills them out, and then you don't get a real clear picture of it anyway. So we intentionally chose not to, just to use this as an opportunity to just gather input generally about the project.
Mr. Carroll.
Wondering if, well, mostly question 3, but just in general, if you felt like this gives us better handle on what the housing might look like if we do get a developer to do housing, what mix or what type.
Yeah, I mean, I think this paired with the market analysis that Michael pulled together, I think, helps to inform that the decisions about that. And then the next thing that we'll talk about is the, kind of an RFI, a request for interest. And we'll get into that later in the meeting, but I think intentionally structured that way to gather interest and kind of share the market data that we have. And then that will again kind of help inform the decisions that are made on the types and the mix of housing that can be developed out there.
Yeah.
Other committee questions? Yes, go ahead, Steve.
One more. So we have no way of knowing for sure if these respondents were actually from Richland County.
We don't know. No, I mean, I think that a good indication of where most of them came from is just kind of where it was shared and how it was shared. But I'm sure, I mean, we didn't share it in channels that would be typically visited by non-county residents, but there certainly wasn't anything in there that prohibited somebody from outside of the county, clicking on the link and completing the survey.
Any other questions? Just looking at the information you summarized, well, there are some themes that rise. There was no, 80% overwhelming anything that came out of this. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation. There wasn't anything, that was super overwhelming, like, but, I think there was general support for, a lot of the concepts that we've talked about. So.
Okay. There are no other questions. Then we can move on to analysis next?
Yeah, so that is the next thing under the administrator's report is the market analysis. And we have SEH a part of that one also.
Yeah, and I think there were some questions at the last meeting that I just didn't feel comfortable addressing, given that the market analysis was done by our sub-consultant, Place Dynamics. And so I believe Michael Stump from Place Dynamics is on the call as well. So if there's questions that remain about that market analysis, I think Michael would be best suited and available to answer those questions tonight.
Yeah, and I don't think Michael Stumpf is on the line right now. So what we could do, Tricia, is if you want to wait and come back to this portion after maybe a different part of the meeting, he may join by then.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, we can do that. Anything else on the administrator's report?
That is it.
Have we had any further assessment of what's going on with the Wellness Student Center in its condition?
We have not.
Yep.
No.
Anybody else have questions for the administrator? All right, then we will move on to item 8, which is discussion of the UW redevelopment grant application.
So I had a meeting with them last week and they had sent us a draft contract. We had it reviewed by Russell Law Firm. They approved everything in it, but then I had a meeting with the individuals giving the grant. And there was some wording in there that talked about if you do not complete all projects of the grant, you have to commit to finishing them. Which if we run out of money, we don't have money to finish all the projects. And so we are working on modifying some of the projects in the grant so that we are not in a position where the county will have to fund the rest of the projects.
So initially, we were told to add up a whole bunch of stuff to
Yep.
take up the 2 million potentially. Now we're being told, well, if you commit to all that, you got to pay for it.
And they're saying, no, technically you don't, but they're not willing to take out that verbiage, even though it does state that you will commit to finishing it. So they are working with underwriting to kind of change it. They're working on changing the budget a little bit. One of the things we know the cost will go up for is the demolition if we have to add the Wellness Student Center. That will greatly increase the cost, and that's the example I gave to them and said that's really one of our priorities is demoing of the buildings. We don't know if that one's going to be a part of it. So I just really want to make sure that we are not on the hook down the line for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff if this goes over.
Are there any other of our lists that give us a lot of exposure like that, or is that something?
Well, I mean, the total list was over 2 million that we had put in there. But we know costs repeatedly go up and will continue to go up. And so, you know, we put 400,000 in for the demo because that's, you know, with the quotes that we received, that's where we were, or 600, I think. With the quotes that we received, but that wasn't including the Wallace Student Center. So then we figure you're gonna put another couple $100,000 on there, that adjusts everything else. Lowers everything else.
But do we also have the option that if we see the initial ones we authorize are more than we thought, that we just don't start the ones that would put us over the top?
And that's what I was trying to ensure.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to ensure is that piece. That we can just start getting through them and going through them one at a time or a couple at a time. Because we're working on the HVAC assignments too. So we can kind of get through those 2 projects and then see where we're at.
So that helps reduce our risk, so,
Yes.
okay.
I think I've asked this question before, but the street that we're putting in out there, is that a cost share with the city?
It is not a cost share with the city. And that is one that I'm kind of putting on the back burner because where we had planned to put it goes right through our LawCon grant. And so that may impact that. So that's one that, given we don't know what everything's gonna look like on the campus, that is one I kind of put on the bottom of the
And it's
Yes.
actually gonna be going across the school property.
It may or may not. I mean, in the end, we really don't know what's going to happen there.
But that would, I would think one project that we could put on the very back burner in case funds run out.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
I had a brief conversation with Todd Fisher of the wastewater department. And he told me that, of course, he works with the other two, the water and electric. And he said everything is fine for the school district purchase. All of that has been separated. But he said, if you get into the rest of that, you're gonna be in a mess. And it's gonna be expensive.
After the meeting we had with city utilities and school district and other officials that were there, we had a chance to sit down and talk to city utilities specifically about strategies for ensuring current service to the buildings that are staying that the school district is going to take over. And they came up with a couple strategies where water and sewer can be connected to the west of those properties, as opposed to having to run all the way over to the east side where some of the stuff comes in now. And what that would do, it would involve constructing a new main, but if that gets paid for, the city's willing to take it because it's a new main. As opposed to old stuff that they don't want to take responsibility for. We would be able to connect both water and sewer to Simons, to the gym, to Melville, coming from the west side. And then whatever was over on the east side is open to redevelopment then, and would have to have all new infrastructure put in, but it would be open. We wouldn't have to worry about crossing mains or anything like that when that site gets redeveloped. So that was a good conversation we had.
It was a good, yeah, it was. And I know Josh has continued to have meetings with them, talking about this so that we can keep the process.
And not just the water and sewer, but electricity too.
Yes, yes.
Just
yes.
making sure that we're aware of all the things. They talked about the service that's out there now to the existing buildings is all private pipe. It's a closed loop. And so our assumption is we tear out the buildings, we tear out all that too. Yeah. So,
Natural gas too.
natural gas is a different animal from city utilities. So, there would be piping and stuff that would have to be worked on with We Energies to sort out, make sure we're doing everything right.
But we've not checked into that yet, or we don't.
Josh has been working on all of it.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he has.
Right. Any other questions with the redevelopment grant? Like every meeting, we're getting closer.
We are getting closer.
This, when this first was announced, they made it sound like, oh, here's $2 million.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
Not gonna say you're wrong, Rod.
And that was some of the discussion I had with them when we had the meeting was, we were given this to try to redevelop our community. And now I feel like there's so many strings and it feels like I don't want us to be in a position where we're taking even more steps backwards because we are on the hook to do some things that we don't have the money to do it. We're committing to this because we're given the money. We also know some of these tasks won't happen till next summer. And things will go up even more when we got the quotes last summer.
Absolutely.
Right. We have nothing else on that. I see we do have our Mr. Stumpf online with us now. Can we go back to the market analysis, please?
Yeah, we got Michael Stumpf here, the author of the document. And if there are questions, I think he'd be more than pleased to answer some of those for you.
Yep. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
I had a few questions.
Okay.
One of them, page 11, looking at the demographic groupings, working through each 5-year interval. We see in the 75 to 84 age group, this huge bump, especially in 2035. What I don't understand is why there was that same cohort should have showed up in the 2030 in the 65 to 74 group in the 5 years prior. So I don't know where all those people came from. And then it also, that same huge jump look when you see the projected change in household by stage, you go jump up to 1,280, but this second graph doesn't say over what time interval. So I'm just trying to understand those better.
Yeah, so I think there's probably two things going on. The first is that the that increase is largely what you're seeing with the last of the baby boomers hitting those ages. Gen X is going to start turning 65 in 5 years. So the larger baby boom generations are the ones that are continuing to live longer. So you see that, and then the generations that follow are smaller. So that's kind of why you see some of that flat line. But the other thing I think is going on here is the model picks up migration. And in a place like Richland Center, where you do have housing that is more appropriate for senior residents, you're probably seeing an inflow from rural areas, not only in Richland County, but even a broader area. People who want to remain more or less in the area and maybe are not finding options elsewhere. So the model is projecting that you're going to have some in-migration from some of the more rural areas coming into the county.
So that begs the question: what data is the model built on then? I mean, Richland Center is not a big urban center, and I think I know. Go ahead.
It's not a big urban center, but it's bigger than a lot of the small communities in Richland County and elsewhere in neighboring counties. And what the model does is uses past trends to project forward. So it estimates what the migration is within each category, what it has been over the last several years. Over the last, I think we used a 6 or 7 year period there, and then projects forward, assuming that the same percentage inflow remains constant. So that's why you're seeing that.
Right. So then that second chart, the one with projected change in household by stage, what time span is that? I can't tell. Over what period of time?
Oh, that would also be that would be 2030, 2035. I can annotate that table. It should have the date on it, so I'll make a note to change that.
So it's from what time to when?
2030 and 2035.
So you're saying
the projections, the projected change.
from the starting date was 20,
The starting date is not shown here.
right?
So the first figure in each category is for 2030, and the second figure would be for 2035.
So you're saying in 5 years, there'll be 1,280 more households in the 75 to 84 age group?
Right.
I find that hard to believe.
I'll double check those figures, but again, I think you're seeing a lot of people retiring at that or hitting that point as that baby boom generation. Oh, and also we're talking households. So the other thing that happens with households is over time, the number of households increases as people split up or one partner passes away. So households is not the same as population.
Understood.
And would an increase in that age bracket be not just people moving in, but also people aging into that bracket as well?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But my point was that when you look at the 5-year segment before that, that big hump is not there to move into the next one. So I don't know where they're coming from.
I'll double check those numbers, but that's a pretty typical scenario that we see in communities like this.
Okay.
And I can go into the formulas and actually try and pull out what the migration is, how much of that's migration, how much of it is just an increase in households, and how much of it is aging.
Other questions on the report?
Yeah, I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going back to my notes. Give me a second. Yeah, okay, page 13 and 14. Top of page 14 says 2023 median rent in Richland County was 786. But then if we look at the chart for 2025, it looks like they're looking at roughly $1,200 median. So that seems like I had quite a jump in 2 years if I'm doing my numbers right.
Yeah, there's two different data sources here, and they also mean different things. So the $786 rent is coming out of the Census Bureau estimates. And I always tell people, take it with a little grain of salt, because that's a small sample that's reporting, and they extrapolate from that and come up with their estimate. But the table is what people can actually afford. So it's not what they're paying, it's the threshold of what they can afford.
Okay. I was trying to compare the two, and I guess they're apples and oranges.
Correct.
All right.
Other questions? So I'd like to spend just a minute on 2.7 there, project site recommendations. You could just give us a quick thumbnail of what you came up with there.
What page?
This is on page 14.
Okay.
Yeah, so housing is something that is needed everywhere. We're seeing that, of course, there has been not enough housing being built, and existing housing is rising very quickly in price, and you have different needs from different buyers. So again, hitting up that senior group as we get older, start thinking about, well, can I still live in that 2-story farmhouse that was built in 1910? Or is it becoming too difficult to maintain, too difficult to negotiate the steps to get up to the bedrooms on the second floor? So as people age, they tend to look for housing that is easier to maintain, all on one level. So that's going to create demand for that kind of detached or attached housing. Whether it's a condominium, townhome, single family detached home. And then beyond that, you're going to see demand for senior apartments. And that's across the spectrum. So somebody who's a younger senior is, again, maybe currently renting a second floor apartment, maybe is thinking about just finding a first floor apartment somewhere. And somebody else might be thinking, I need to move into something where there's a little bit of, some level of assistance provided. And then you have at the far end of that people who are, in need of advanced nursing care. So I think you're going to see demand from the seniors across the board. And I think to the detached homes now, you could build apartments too, but the understanding was that the preference is more for owned housing at this site. So we focused more on that. But that modest size home, 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, is something that there'd be demand. And you're competing, I would say, really in a broad region, because anybody who is working within 30 miles or so may consider Richland Center as opposed to other communities if you have the housing available that they want. So housing can be a growth strategy as well. And this site, I think, is a pretty attractive site. It's got some topography. Homes up there potentially would have a little bit of a view. You've got the high school that's nearby, so people who have kids are thinking about that. You've got the woods up above, the recreation center. There's just a lot going for this site that would make it very attractive for housing.
Anybody else have questions?
No question.
I would reinforce the idea that one of the big challenges you have here across Wisconsin, across Illinois, other states where we've done this work and looked at what happened to the builders in 2010. They were wiped out. And there are huge swaths of most states where there are no builders left to build housing. And you're kind of in that mix there. I think really a regional economic development approach is something that's needed to try and bring back some of those builders, people who maybe are in, related elements of construction who, with the right economic development assistance, might become single family home builders.
Mr. Perry, go ahead.
Talked with a woman this morning, recently widowed, who's going to sell her rural home and move to the city. And it's exactly what he just said. She's looking for, she wants a basement, but no other steps.
Mhm.
And that's, if she can find that, she'll move to the city. If she can't, she'll find it in a rural area or somewhere else.
Mr. Carroll.
What are your thoughts about this somewhat newer thing of modular homes where you don't need quite as much crafts versus it's stick built, and yet there's some pretty nice looking things coming out?
Yeah, that is something we talk about in a lot of places. And I'm aware that Hillsborough built a subdivision, a modular home subdivision.
Yep.
Might be a good road trip, go up and talk with the folks up there and see how that went. But that probably is one of the solutions for many communities. The homes can be built, as panels or modules and assembled on site. There are programs, I'm aware, the city of Chicago has one where they're doing that with both attached and detached homes. And in Indiana, there are a couple pilot programs the state has funded to try and build modular home subdivisions in a couple different communities there. So it's a trend, and I think it's a very good one to look at. There are builders in the area. I think Wick Homes maybe is somebody that you could talk to.
I saw the ones in Hillsborough. They were detached. They had basements. I mean, they were still in process, but I mean, it looked to me like after they were done, you wouldn't have been able to tell.
Right.
Other questions? Well, thank you for the report.
Have you
Yep,
done these
thank you.
before where the investor brings their own builders with them?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Have you had any projects prior to this one that you sold to investors that actually brought their builders with them?
We have worked with some communities, and I'm sure these guys have too, to put out an RFP. So if they have a project site, whether it's a redevelopment site or a greenfield site, and put out a request for proposals, and recruited developers for that.
Again, thank you for the report, for the information. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so back to our agenda. We are now on item 9, discussion and possible action, request for proposals or request for qualifications, RFP or RFQ.
So I had asked SEH to be on to talk about what the process will look like. I think I know in my mind there was confusion. Derek and I had a very nice meeting with both Nate and Brian and had a really good understanding. So I'm asking them to give us an overview of what that process is. And then if there are thoughts that the committee has, that they could share those thoughts with SEH.
Sounds great. What we have for you today here is a quick presentation of some of the highlights of this document we're putting together. We're calling it a request for interest. There's RFQ, there's RFP, there's RFEI. We have settled on the request for interest because that is really what we're looking for here. And as we go through, you'll kind of understand why. The purpose of this is intended to identify the development teams out there and feasible redevelopment concepts that they come up with. Based on responses received, Richland County might, at its sole discretion, invite one or more respondents to enter into further discussions or negotiations regarding potential redevelopment of the site. But it's important to note that the county may pursue such negotiations without issuing any future RFP or RFQ. What we're looking for is interest from builders and developers right now. The outline of the document, we'll go through kind of what it is. There's about 5 slides of this. The first part of it is going to talk about the background. The purpose of this, give an introduction about it, maybe some of that market analysis information from Michael's report. We have the site condition report that we put together. We'll have a map included. And like I said, some of that market analysis information, the key findings from that, just to help give some context to the site and get people understanding who do have interest in this, where this site is, and what's on the site now. Then the next part would be called the vision. What our desired development outcomes are for this whole property. Market supported, compatible with the surroundings, of course, and then making sure there's access throughout. We'd want to talk about preferred land use concepts, see which developers, builders are interested in residential. Maybe some of them are only focused on commercial or mixed use. We are still up in the air with that student center theater, but we can take that out if we end up going a specific way before this is released, whether that's going to be demolished or not. And then, of course, we got the Highway 14 frontage, which would most likely include some commercial in the future. And then we would talk about that infrastructure and site planning considerations, some of the utilities, the parcel lines, where the buildings that would be demolished are located, and then talking a bit about, how this is the county's project. They're going to be participating, and there are potential incentives. I don't know if we're going to put this map specifically into the RFI. This is the one we've created that kind of shows where these potential development areas are, potential road. It kind of shows where the buildings are being demolished. We can tweak this, but I think we want to give, the RFI at least an opportunity for when people look at it, they kind of get an idea of where these development spots are. Understanding they can't build too high up on the hill, and they can't build too low because of the floodplains. So we thought this would be a nice contextual map to include. Brian, do you want to go through the selection process?
Sure. So, with one of these, with a document like this, it's just important to give potential respondents a good, solid idea of exactly what the process is, what we're looking for, what they should be putting together, how they should be submitting it, and then what the next steps are. And so the selection process section of the document will talk about developer qualifications, what we're looking for in a developer and a response. There'll be specific proposal submission requirements. So areas that they should include, including their qualifications, their vision for the site, what they can bring to the site, what they might be into or what they might need from an incentive or local participation to make the vision a reality. And so those will be kind of the submission requirements. And then just evaluation criteria. So give them an idea of what we're looking for and how we're going to evaluate the responses that we get. And then that use of the RFI responses is really the statement from the first slide that we included on the front end here. But just to restate that and just make sure that they know that that we're requesting these the kind of statement of interest that could lead to negotiations, or it could lead to a next step. It could lead to a request for a specific proposal or specific proposals on certain areas of the site. But this step is really about just gauging interest, engaging with developers, and starting to understand what the possibilities of the site are from a real life market analysis perspective. And then there'll be a schedule and contact information section within this. So we would likely issue this hopefully by mid-March. We would offer an optional site tour. It's always good to give potential developers the opportunity to visit the site, ask questions. We probably want to encourage or ask Josh to be there and maybe others from the county to just make sure that, and we would be there to just be able to answer any questions that they might have as they're kind of jumping into it. And then we would have a responses due date, likely a month after we put it out there. We'd want to request we would set the due date. So that might be my mid-April. And then kind of a determination of next steps timeline. So we would want to give them an idea of, maybe by late April, or this could stretch into early May, potentially, depending on your schedule. But we'd want to make a determination based upon the responses that we get and kind of set a deadline for getting back to them and saying, all right, we've decided to enter negotiations with these couple of parties, or we've decided to do an RFP to request more specific proposals on the site. So that's kind of that selection process. And then we'd end the document with just a bunch of disclaimers. We'd want to just make it very clear that the county has the right to cancel, modify, or reject proposal or the process. We would have the right, the county would have the right to consider any and all responses. You'd have the right to reissue it if something changes during this process. That the responses would become the property of the county to use as you will to inform future processes and things like that. That it's non-binding and there would be a non-liability. They would hold us harmless of any liability on this. So really the goals are of this process are to protect the county's interests, to really start to market the site with this RFI, to engage interested developers, and then eventually work with those developers to move toward the ultimate sale and development. But as Nate indicated, I think we just thought this request for interest was the right step at the point in this process that we're at now, to just start to gather that interest and make informed decisions about how to move forward while leaving your options open.
So that's really the whole document. We have a nice draft of it, but we wanted to hear what the committee's thoughts were. If we're missing anything, if you have any thoughts about this process that we've designed, if there's anything we want to add into this, now would be a great time. You can always email us thoughts too.
Committee, any initial thoughts? Start with Mr. Carroll.
I'm not a developer. I'm not gone through anything like this before, but it seems like there's some assumptions or some implicit things here about how the project delivery happens. We own the property. What are the steps where a developer, I don't know, do we give it to them for $1? How does the transfer happen? And to me, that I have a lot of questions that may not apply if we just turn it over to them and it's all at their risk. I just want to know for sure what you guys are assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. It's, and that's really kind of the big question that's out there. But I think the reason for this RFI is to just start to have that dialogue with potential developers, start to understand what their needs are, to be able to deliver development on the site. We've already started to have some of those conversations, but I think now's the time that it's time to put it out there for anybody who has interest to make it known and start to engage in those conversations. I think it's likely that some level of incentive or public-private partnership is going to be required to move things forward. But until we really start to have those detailed conversations with developers that have real actual interest in working on the site, it's hard to understand. It's hard to know kind of how far those incentives will need to go in the market. So
I have a good number of questions if we get that RFP or RFQ point then.
I like the RFI approach. We're feeling in the dark here. We haven't been in this position before, and hopefully we never are again. But I like this idea. Get some, without the developer being obligated, at least he can come and look.
Yep. I have one question if you're done. How much access will they need if we give them an optional site visit? I'm just thinking about the farmer with the crop ground in, if they're gonna wanna, I don't know if they're gonna wanna look at the woods, but there's some access.
I wouldn't anticipate that, a real need to get too deep into the site. I think they're just going to want to get on site. They'll want to understand, kind of standing on the ground and understand the topography, understand, I think maybe walk and see the buildings, see where the buildings, the ones that will be coming down, especially if we keep the adaptive reuse of the student center and theater in there. They're going to want to go in that building if there is somebody that might be interested in an adaptive reuse of that one. I would favor just kind of keeping that in there for now. Just again, to kind of see what we get. We might not get anybody that bites on that, and that informs that decision to say, yep, let's knock it down. But if all of a sudden somebody comes out and says, you know what, I could take the bones of this building and turn it into this, and that might be something that the community is really interested in. I think that's been our thought all along, is just if we can get to the point that we can at least throw it out there and see what people are see if anybody's interested in it. It allows you to make a more informed decision about how to move forward on that. But otherwise, I think it's more just kind of getting on site and getting a feel for the topography and all of that. I don't think anybody's going to need to, go walk through the woods or or even, set foot into the crop plants or anything, but.
No.
Other questions? Mr. Carroll?
It's a question for us, but they might have thoughts on it too. The city is also potentially part of this. They have this grant that could repurpose. Obviously, the utilities are gonna interface with the city, so I'm just wondering how we don't close that off, or what our thoughts are for how they can still participate in some way. And I'm just throwing that out there.
If you don't mind, after seeing this timeline, my plan was tomorrow send an email to Jason and Ashley and say, here's what our process is, because that's kind of a question they've been asking about. And then making sure once it goes out, then I'll make sure we email it directly to them so that they have it.
Okay, they can throw their proposal in the ring. Okay. Other questions? So for the committee's purpose, do we need to move this forward to executive or just give them the green light?
I think we can just give them the green light because we're not selling anything.
Right.
Yes.
It's just gauging interest.
Yes.
We're not committing the county to anything, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Carroll?
I guess I do have one more question. Like I said, I had a whole list of questions that are probably more if we were generating an RFQ. And so are we gonna have one more chance to dialogue with SDH if we decide we're gonna do an RFQ for the.
Well, I would assume that would fall under our next steps discussion once the initial interest stuff comes back.
That April.
Yeah.
The information will be back by, you're gonna give them like so much time
And then we'll either have a whole lot more questions depending on what people send us, or there'll be one clearly good idea that we want to chase, and then we can talk about what other questions we have to start making those things more real. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So is the committee in favor of giving the go-ahead here for SCH to proceed with the RFI?
Yeah, absolutely.
Seeing head nods all around, I don't know if we need a formal vote or. Should, all right, then I'm gonna be looking for a motion from Mr. Perry, and I assume what you're motioning is to give SEH the go-ahead to proceed with the RFI process?
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion, a second by Mr. Schoonover. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, give them the go-ahead. Thank you for the work on this so far. It's excited to see something moving here. It's good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Item 10, discussion of possible action to set future meeting date.
So based on what they shared, I wonder if we want to look to April 29th to have our next meeting and use that as an opportunity to really take a look at the RFIs that were received.
The other reality we have is an April election and a reorganization of the board that has to happen in April. So having it later in April would seem to make sense.
At 4.
That works for me.
First on the committee at that time. All right, so we'll set a next meeting date for this ad hoc committee on April 29th at 4 p.m. Any correspondence? Under report. Other future agenda items beyond the RFI that we just talked about.
I just want to make one point. I hear this term modular being kicked around a lot. When I was in the construction business, a friend and I put 6 of these homes together. Different sizes, different styles. I think you're getting a false sense that they're gonna be a lot cheaper than a stick-built home, and they are not. Now, the reason being, the modular homes I worked on were very, very nice quality homes. They have the same building things in them, as far as walls, everything is done. The only thing different is they're using the same material, they're just building it in a big shed. Now, a modular home, everybody don't realize too, it comes with 7-foot sidewalls, not 8. And it's either 3 or 3.5, 12. It's a little bit flatter roof because of the height of this pulling it down the road on Highland Road. Yep. They have solid oak doors, solid oak trim. The kitchen cabinets are probably as nice as you're gonna find anywhere. The components are all really nice, and yes, I'm sure they could build you a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1,200 square feet economy style home. But it's still not gonna be a lot, if any, cheaper than a stick built.
And that's consistent with what we've heard from like NHS when they came and talked to us, that particularly the ones they deal with, which are built in Lancaster.
Yeah.
They are stick built, they're just built inside a building, and then they are hauled, put in place, and then finished on
They
site,
use
so.
the same material as a stick built.
Yep.
Just,
Knowing
it's
that,
nice, I mean, 2 halves and you've got a home.
and knowing the dollar amounts they talk about, it isn't necessarily a cost efficiency, but it does speed up the building schedule a bit. And so it has some conveniences in that way, and because you're using standardized layouts, that creates an economy of scale if you do multiples.
And that way would drive the price down a little bit.
So good points, good points. All right, anything else for future agenda item?
Maybe we should have the Wallace Student Center / Copper Top. Maybe we should have that in case we need to discuss it again.
Yep.
Hopefully, between now and then, we can look at it there.
Get an update on the status.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you have?
Oh, Josh.
Yeah.
Josh and me.
Very good.
Josh and me.
Very good. Get our maintenance buildings folks. Anything else for the next agenda? All right, hearing none, that brings us to item 13, looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Williamson, second by Carroll. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.